talk about something last night, which came up tonight, and so the people that listen, and again, the people that listen to this show are, it's it's more like a I don't know what kind of space it is. It's a lot of people that listen all over the world, and I can't keep talking about the same thing over and over. It has to be new, fresh content. But here is my fear when I look at what's going on. Everything is being done by executive orders, and that's not going to hold up because we just saw what happened 4 years ago when Joe Biden went into office. He reversed everything that Trump did, and the same thing could be done again. And I know the Democrats right now, they're messed up. They don't know what's going on. But my sources that I've had on the show that actually are doing things to help the administration, working with Senator Bill Hagerty, they have said that they expect a 5% inflation with the potential trade war that's going to happen. So I think we have Trump has a very small window for legislation. And if things don't get done through legislation, then everything can be undone. And with the small majority in the House it's going to end up being 220 to 215. Right now it's 217 to 213, and but that's where it will end up after the special elections, 220 to 215. The Senate has the majority, and the problem is, as we just saw with the continuing resolution, most things take 60 votes in the Senate. The reconciliation does not. And the reconciliation is very important and something I've been talking about for months, since before Donald Trump went into office. That's where we can get the cuts in spending, in the DOGE cuts. Because when you look back at the budget in 2019, prior to COVID, it was $4.5 trillion. We went up to $6.6 trillion in COVID because they shut everything down and they had to give everybody money. Since then, it really hasn't gone back down. Joe Biden would talk about deficit spending. Well, that's because I cut more deficit spending than any other president. Well, good for you. Guess what he did? He took it from 6.6 to 6.2 trillion, which is exactly the amount we're still spending as a result of what they just did with the continuing resolution. However, I didn't think they had any other choice but to pass the continuing resolution right now to give it more time, because the reconciliation is going to take time. It's going to take months, because the most important thing in the reconciliation is going to be the tax cuts. Because if those tax cuts don't come, have you looked and paid attention to what it's going to cost you in 2026? It's thousands of dollars per family. And so that's what's important. But there's so much legislation that we need to try to get done to put the things that Donald Trump has done with executive orders into law. And then when you put that together with the Chevron deference decision last June in the Supreme Court, to me, that was the biggest decision that was made in the Supreme Court last year. And the problem with that, a lot of people don't understand this, but with Chevron deference, every law has to be challenged. So just because the Supreme Court kind of threw that out, it doesn't mean anything unless someone says that this is against the law because the Supreme Court said, and then you would have to take it to the Supreme Court. But what it would do in laws going forward is make it much simpler to make clean bills with no ambiguity. And I think it's really important. And I think there is a very small window here. And I've said for months, it's 8 to 14 months. And I've had some people on my show that say, well, maybe it'll go out to 18 months. And maybe it does. And the reason why is because there's a midterm election coming on in 26. Unfortunately, we go through this 2-year cycle. Historically, it would be the Democrats that would take over the House of Representatives. So if that does happen, then and again, you have to watch the moderate Republicans in the House of Representatives, because they're going to stop supporting Donald Trump when it gets closer to election. And I'm talking about those that are sitting in districts where they won 50.2 to 49.8%. If there is a 5% inflation, which I agree with the tariffs, and I can get into all of that if you want to sometime, but I agree with the tariffs. I believe that it should be fair. It should be a level playing field, but there's going to be a price for us to pay. And I think the inflation is going to be a part of that for a while. I think you also look for the dollar to be devalued in some way, maybe manipulated so that it is devalued. And the reason why is because you would want the dollar to be less with inflation and the tariffs so that our products in the world are still affordable for other countries. So that's something else. And then another word I'm getting is that there is going to be a coin, a crypto coin backed by gold that Donald Trump will be announcing. I was told that would be a week ago. It still hasn't come, but I did see Senator Bill Haggerty making some conversation, and I saw several people post about it, about crypto. This is not a central bank digital currency because Donald Trump signed an executive order saying there couldn't be one. So just keep that in mind when you see it. Don't confuse things. Let's go to Trump Girl. Trump Girl, go ahead.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
You sound great. Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to kind of I've enjoyed this space. It's been amazing. Um I wanted to talk about the swatting stuff cuz that it
Sure.
actually back when it happened was happening in well a year ago at Christmas there was several people that was swatted, Jack Posovic's parents, Cat Turd. There was a few other people that were swatted. I was one of those swatting victims back then. And then I got doxxed on Reddit when I went to the inauguration this time. And I had opened my Facebook up. My Facebook's been private for years, but I had opened my Facebook up because my sister in October had a heart attack and she ended up at Cleveland Clinics. And I opened my Facebook back up so people could. I was putting out like nightly posts about her, about what, the progress that she was making and the things the doctors were doing to save
Sure.
her life.
And you got a visitor.
And I haven't had any visitors yet, but I'm telling you, when I got doxxed on Reddit over in January when I went to the inauguration, I have never received. I had forgot that my Facebook was still wide open, and I went and I started looking, and I started getting all these messages on Twitter or X. So I had to shut my X account down. I've been Mike. This is Tammy McDonald. I was supposed to do a space with you about January 6th, and my husband asked me not to do it with you because he was afraid for me to speak out about it before the election.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So then I went and changed my name on my X account because I was getting so many death threats there. And I mean, I screenshot so many of these death threats that I was getting on Facebook because, like I said, I forgot I had opened my Facebook back up to the public. And I've got like PTSD right now because of all these people getting swatted because I know what that feels like. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. We have uh, I live on the street that leads up to a park, a city park, and at Christmas time, I hand out candy canes to all the kids going to the Festival of Lights, and I got doxxed while, or not doxxed, swatted while I was doing that. I had like 10 cop cars, flashing lights in front of my house. I mean, it was terrifying. And I mean, all my neighbors were like, what's going on? Somebody called and said that I caught my husband and wife in bed with another woman, and I had shot both of them in the head, and I was locked in the bathroom and was going to kill myself. So swatting thing has just brought all that back, and I feel for these people. Mike, I know how your wife feels because it's terrifying when you go through something like that, and I would have never known what that felt like if it didn't happen to me. So I feel for all you people that are being swatted. It's a horrible feeling. And every time I live on a sleepy little street now here, I find myself looking out the window every time a car passes by thinking, oh my gosh, are they going to get me again? So I just wanted to tell you guys, I sympathize with you and I understand what it feels like because it happened to me and nothing was ever done about it. I didn't ever, Jack Posobiec had actually given the FBI agent that he had spoke to that hit about his parents swatting my phone number because they thought because my account was so small that maybe they could get some kind of traction to find out who was actually doing it. And but I never heard a thing from them. Nobody ever called me. I've never heard a word about it since then.
Are
So
you in St. Augustine?
no,
Okay.
I live in West
Okay.
Virginia.
Well, you said Festival of Lights. They have a beautiful Festival of Lights at Christmas time there. I thought maybe that was where you're from. But you bring up some great points. I kind of talked about it at the very beginning. There weren't many people in here when we first started. And I brought up my experiences of being doxxed and a death threat, and I go to LinkedIn and I see in 1 week that my top searchers work for the Department of Justice, the U.S. House of Representatives, the Department of Health and Human Services, and there was one more, the U.S. Navy, and that kind of rattled my cage. And then I have interviewed. I interviewed J6 prisoners from the DC Gulag, and I know every time I did that the FBI was listening, and it's all nerve wracking. And I lived with my head on a swivel there for a long time. I feel much better now, but I want to get to the part of about being doxxed, and I figured out how I did it. I can't change it now, how it was done to me. But when I did SaveYourRepublic.org to recruit poll workers across the country prior to the 22 midterm, I had done Give Send Go, and with that you had to use a real address, and that's how that happened with me. I've had fortunately moved. Parsons was talking earlier that it happens to him all the time. He doesn't care. He uses his real name, and so I guess it depends maybe on what you say, whether how worried you should be on things like that. But you make some good points, and let's go down to Adam. Adam, thank you for your patience. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, you were talking about. Oh, I got a jet flying overhead. You were talking about the monetary situation here, and what I see personally. This is as far as gold-backed crypto, they already have something out there called Paxos. It's called Paxos Gold, and it is asset based. It's they mint coins and put them on the blockchain, and you could go to like several locations to actually exchange your Paxos Gold coin for basically gold. And
Yeah,
there's a bunch of
real quick.
LBMA audited
Let
vaults.
me interject something here, Adam. I'm talking about the federal government
Yeah, and
creating
I was
this.
getting to
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay, go ahead.
100%. And what I see, what's being done with Ripple Network, which has the RLUSD, which is 1-to-1 with the US dollar, and XRP being its exchange mechanism for instead of, like, for instance, SWIFT, you want to send money overseas, any sort of international transactions, that'll be utilized there. So that would come down to the US dollar being gold backed. And I think that's where we're going into auditing the Fed. They've got a bunch of gold coming from overseas to fill the vault there and as much as they can. And that's where we go and revitalize that that asset base, and go get some resources, stack it up in the vault, and audit it regularly, and then we'll have a actual dollar, like money, not currency. The currency will be the XRP exchange and all that, and any other sort of ISO 222 approved, which is international standard organization, and that allows, like, it gives an international standard for technology, any sort of you know uh, anything you create, like, it's why you have certain plugs for certain devices. It plugs into your outlet. They have a ISO for